Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to assemble a cadre of writers, thinkers, and teachers who are transforming the world one character at a time. And it all starts with one thing, a deep understanding of human motivation, why people do what they do, and the forces that drive them. To gain this understanding, I am mining the intersection of psychology, theology, and philosophy to make you a better writer. This is episode number 38, Determining Your Character Profile, Your Rudder Traits. There's something that's true about you that you struggle with quite often. It seems every time it comes up, you might do what you plan to do and you might not. Maybe it goes by streaks. You'll do it for a while and then you'll slack off for a while. But it seems like every time this thing comes up, it takes mental energy. You have to make a decision and talk yourself into doing it, or else you have to come up with some excuse why you don't have to do it. This is the very definition of a rudder trait. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video for a moment and think of a rudder trait. Think of a story, of a situation, of one of these struggles where sometimes you do it and sometimes you don't do it. Right? For the first step, just pause and think of what that is. Did you come up with something? Great. Then the next step that I want you to do is to take out a 4x6 file card, and I want you to write a little story. And this time, the first story that you're going to write is the first time that you remember dealing with this as a struggle. I'll pause the video and write your story. Did you get your story written? Terrific. Now, this next story I want you to write is the most recent time that you did not do what you had planned to do. Include, if you like, the excuse that you made up for yourself for why you didn't have to do it. So pause the video and write your story about the most recent time that you did not do what you intended to do. Did you write your story? Terrific. Now, there's one more story to write. There's 3 for a rudder trait. This time, I want you to take out a 4x6 file card and write a little story about the most recent time that you can remember that you did do what you wanted to do for that particular trait. So pause the video and write your story of when you did it. Did you write your story? Fantastic. Now label each card with the word rudder trait. And later on, after we've gotten all of our stories together, then we'll work on giving a name to the character traits. And then we'll finish building the character profile diagram. So, tonight I'm going to continue with the story that's kind of the background for where this came from and how I came about creating this system and the 35 lesson course that I teach on YouTube. As I mentioned before, my goal was to try to help my niece be able to write even though she only had small fragments of time in which to write. And the biggest challenge was, how do you reconnect with the emotions of the story? Now, I had worked for 3 years with a psychologist as a statistician. And one of the things that stuck in my mind when I began pondering what could I do for Stacy was I recalled where the data came from that I was running the statistical analysis on. Much of the data was gathered from videotaped, yes, VHS, that'll show my age, videotaped interactions of the subjects or the subjects' families. And a videotape of people talking is not data, clearly. So the way that became data was they had coders. Coders were given a guidebook and a methodology for watching the human interaction, picking up what was going on emotionally amongst the participants, and they would encode it. And the manual was so well constructed and the coders were so well trained that you could sit different individuals down and have them watch the same exchange, and they would be statistically identical. You could rely on that kind of data to be able to give you some real information about the emotional characteristics of the subjects. So that was another piece of information that I had tucked away in my Zettelkasten. Okay, so with just a few codes, you could capture an emotion reliably. That was an important, very important trigger. And it went into my just gathering all of these different ideas that would eventually come together to be the complete idea for the system. So I will give you the next step. I don't want to bore you with a bunch of history. So tomorrow, after we discuss the wing traits, I'll give you another snippet of the story. But that's it for tonight. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.